Hi, Jamie Ray here with Jamie Ray Vintage with a lamp and lampshade DIY. We're going to start off with some lamps that you can find at your local thrift store or at a yard sale or maybe at one of your flea markets, and then some lampshades. We're going to do a couple different techniques. One is going to be painting the fabric lampshades. The other is going to be painting and white waxing the detailed lamp that I have here. And then I'm going to be doing a decorative metallic spray paint on our second lamp. So the first thing I'm going to do is spray my first lamp. I have checked it to make sure it works. That's important. You don't want to finish a lamp and then have it not be ready to go. And I have Rust-Oleum forged hammer paint and primer in one, an antique pewter. And I'm going to go ahead and spray this. First you got to shake it. Okay. And you're going to spray in a nice even pattern. It's important to make nice long strokes. That way you don't have any dripping. And you want to make sure you have the mat down so that way if you've got any overspray, you're protected. Don't spray it on too thick or you'll get drips. And then you have to sand it, and that'll get rid of some of the look that you're going for. I'm going to go ahead and, works on metal and wood. I'm going to spray my harp too so that way it all matches. So this is done. It'll dry in about an hour or two and it'll be nice and shiny. Okay, so our next lamp that we're going to be working on has got some great detail, and I think it would be beautiful painted dark with a white wax. So I've got a few places in it where there's chips. So it's a pretty inexpensive. I think I paid maybe $5 for it at the thrift store because I had the chips. But when you paint it and you add the white wax, it'll just add to its rustic charm. So first I'm going to start off with my Fairy Chalk Mother paint here in gunmetal. It's one of my favorite grays. It's nice and dark. And my trusty Zebra brush. The piece has been washed and it's nice and clean, free of any grease or gunk. My paint will stick to it great. You don't need to sand it. You just go right to painting. It'll take a couple coats to get it all done. But it covers nice and thick. One of the best things about Fairy Chalk Mother is that it doesn't require any prep and you can paint almost anything with it. You don't have to sand your pieces. You just make sure they're clean and then you paint. Because who has time to sand? You could tape off your cord if you wanted to. I'm not worried if a little paint gets on it, but if you were concerned about paint getting on your cord, you could tape it off. I do suggest using a rip tie and cording it back, or a zip tie, I don't know, whatever they call it. That way it's not in your way. This brush I'm using is a Zebra brush. I sell them on my website. They're a synthetic brush, clean up with soap and water, and they hold a lot of paint. They keep it from dripping, and they cover really well. Okay, got our first coat on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to the side. Oops, I missed the top part. I'm going to set this to the side and work on our lampshades next. Don't want to forget our trusty little knob on the top here. It's hard to paint. This goes on the top of the harp once the lampshade goes on. Hold it on. Okay, so that's all painted. I don't like washing out my brushes in between painting, so I just put them in a Ziploc bag. It'll stay fresh while my paint dries. The next color that I'm going to be using is Fairy Chalk Mother in Fresh Cream. It's one of my favorite creams. It's soft and buttery. I've made sure that my lampshade is free of dust and debris and it's wiped down and it's ready to paint. Now there's two ways you could do this. You can brush it, or if you have an air compressed spray gun, you could also spray it on. But since not everybody has a spray gun, I'm going to show you how to brush it. This is going to take a couple coats to cover. And I will, after I get the first coat on, I will take 120 grit sandpaper or sanding block, and I will buff it in between to make it smooth. Sometimes you can find the right color lampshade for your project and it's perfectly clean, and sometimes you can't. So I found if I just paint it, I can get the color I want, get it nice and clean and fresh. I'm going to want to kind of go around the lip here. I don't have any drips. You want to make sure that you smooth out your paint, because you don't want it to look like it's painted when you're done. Okay. First lampshade is done. We're moving on to the second lampshade. This one got a little bit of overspray on it when I spray painted that, so that's why I spray painted first and painted second. Or I could have just moved it out of the way. When I'm all done painting, I'm going to seal this with our matte poly, and I will actually spray that on with my air compressed spray gun. If you didn't have an air compressed spray gun, you could just buy a can of Rust-Oleum matte clear coat, top coat in your spray paint section of your local hardware store, and that would work. It doesn't take very long. You can have a lampshade done, not including dry time, 10 or 20 minutes. And it's a great way to reuse old lampshades instead of just buying new ones or throwing out your old ones. Sometimes you find lampshades that have great lines, but they're not necessarily the color that you want. And this one actually covered really well in one coat. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 coats on it, just to make sure I've got all the areas. Alright, so we'll let this all dry and we'll come back and I will show you the finishing touches on our lamp projects. Hi, Jami Ray with Jami Ray Vintage back here. We've got 2 coats of paint on our lamp and our lamp shades. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I finish this particular lamp. I'm going to distress it. I've got a sanding block here with 60 grit sandpaper. You could use 80 or 100 grit. I like 60. You just got to go kind of soft because otherwise it'll take too much off. And you're just going to kind of do the edges and just give a little bit of light distress to bring out the detail. And then I'm going to put some white wax on there to go and fill in all the cracks. You just want to go along the edges where it would naturally see wear over time. So it's going to give it kind of an aged effect. Okay, next we're going to wipe it down, get all the loose dust off of it. And then we're going to go with our white wax. This is, depending on when you're watching this video, this may or may not be out yet. Hopefully in the next week, it will be on my website. It's a new product. We call it a smeary wax, and you can mix it with any of our fairy chalk leather paint, and you can make any kind of decorative wax you want. This is mixed with snowflake, and this is my wax brush. And you just kind of rub it on anywhere where you want detail to it. When I'm all done brushing it on, I'm going to wipe it down with a rag. You want to push kind of hard and get down into the cracks. Just make sure I get all the cracks. Okay. Now, just going to rub it in. Basically, I'm just removing all the excess and smushing it down into all the crack. This wax chemically bonds with the fairy chalk leather paint, so it adheres really well. When I'm all done with this, I'm going to spray it with a matte poly, a water-based matte poly. Really important that when you're using water-based paint, that your polyurethane or whatever finish you seal it with, if you're not using a wax, is also water-based. You never mix water and oil-based products. You'll get bubbling if you do. Alright, so I've got it smeared in all the cracks, and we're going to take this outside along with my lampshades and spray them with a matte poly. Okay, so we're ready to spray. We have an 8-gallon air compressor over here. It does up to 125 psi, which is more than enough because we are going to be spraying at 55 psi. And then we've got our spray gun set at a 50% angle. And we've got our matte poly. You don't have to strain it, you just put it straight in. And then you can go ahead and spray. It's really important to get nice, even strokes, so that way you don't have any dripping, and you're going to want it to dry before you go over it again, because if you keep spraying in one area, you're going to get lots of dripping. I like to go up and down and then top to bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to do my lampshades. Now here's a trick with the lampshades. If you paint them and then they've got a little bit of a texture to them because not all fabric is soft, sand them in between your coats of paint and you'll smooth it out. There are some fabrics that no matter what are going to have a little bit of texture, and that's okay too. If you didn't have an air compressor and a spray gun, they make a matte poly in a spray paint. And you can get that in the spray paint section at your local hardware store. Okay, I'm going to give these a minute and put one more coat on, and then we'll be all done. Okay, so both of our lamps are finished. They've been painted. This one was painted with the Rust-Oleum spray paint and the silver pewter finish. And then we used fresh cream on the lampshade and we sealed it with our matte poly. And on this lamp, we painted with fairy chalk leather gunmetal paint. And then I used the white wax, and then I sealed it with a matte poly, and the lampshade is also fresh cream and sealed with a matte poly. They're ready to go. I think they look great for my little thrift store finds. If you enjoyed this segment of Jami Ray Vintage, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more DIY.